I was coming out around through that Discount Tire because I got gas over there, and there was a blind spot, a bush or something, and I crept out as far as I could. I got it ready to launch, and I pulled out, and a car was coming down the lane. And I didn't like pulling out in front of the car, but I did everything I could to make sure that I didn't. And I'm sure that guy wasn't too happy. He didn't slam on his brakes, but I'm sure he was probably thinking, geez, buddy, you kind of pull out, couldn't you wait a little bit? And it's very easy to make that assumption about people, like people are jerks or they're impatient. In reality, a lot of times people pull out because they simply don't see you.
Right.
And it can cause a bad wreck. Even if somebody pulls out and you don't hit them, you could hit your brakes hard and get rear-ended. So, or worse, or even worse, let's say somebody pulls out in front of you and you swerve to the left and you hit somebody on the left, or you trigger a chain reaction that causes a wreck. So it's not just an annoyance or an irritation when people pull out in front of you. I mean, it can cause some damage. So when you drive, you have to be aware that, especially in an area where there's lots of side streets and outlets or whatever, that people could pull out. So there are some things that you are in control over that can help that. So and this is where the defensive driving comes in. For one, in a way, driving the speed limit is a form of defensive driving. Because if you drive too fast, for one, doing anything fast hurts other people's ability to see you. They're less likely to see you if you back. Just like if you back out of this parking spot. You back out of this parking spot quickly, there is a chance that somebody may not see you because you back up quickly. So speed affects people's ability to see you. The other thing about speed is, even if they do see you, they could miscalculate things. They could miscalculate. So if I'm pulling out by that Discount Tire down that little road there, and I do that all the time, and let's say the last 200 or 300 cars all go roughly the same speed. They're all roughly right around 20 miles per hour. Because it's not a very fast road, it's just a little side road. But then there's this one guy coming down 30 or 35. Well, even if I see him, there's a chance I could pull out in front of him because I just miscalculated. I assume that he's going maybe slower than he is because he looks like he's going kind of slow, and everybody else before him was going kind of slow. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of aggressive drivers, fast drivers, they get really upset with people pulling out. And it's like, no, wait a second here. Maybe you're driving a little differently than the average driver, and somebody they saw you, but they miscalculated. So speed definitely is a factor in people's ability to see you, and people's ability to calculate pulling out too. The other thing that affects people's ability to see you, and this is probably the simplest thing of all. It's probably one of the most simplest defensive driving thing that you can possibly do. It takes only 2 seconds per drive, 1 second when you get in the car, 1 second when you turn off the car, and that's just put on your full headlights. Now, most people would say, well, I don't need my full headlights because it's daytime. Well, then why do you have your daytime running lights on? Because I want people to see me. Well, which is brighter, your daytime running lights or your regular headlights? My regular headlights. Well, why don't you put on your regular headlights? I mean, it's just kind of logically looking at that. That's kind of how I look at it. If the daytime lights are kind of bright, but the full headlights are brighter, and the full headlights will shine off of other things. They'll reflect off of objects. They can shine through bushes. So if there is a bush, and see, that's the thing, the car coming down, he wasn't necessarily going fast, but he was a gray car blended in with the sidewalk, and he had no lights on. Almost every car you see here on the road has daytime lights, but a lot of people, they just don't see what the big deal is, because a lot of times people need to see some kind of benefit to a decision they make. You know, that's how a lot of Americans are. They want to make a decision and get kind of a reward for it or something, and again, using your turn signals, having your headlights on, even having your daytime lights on, nobody's going to chase you down and say, hey, thank you so much for putting on your lights or putting on the turn. No, it's just one of those things that you should say, you know what, I think it helps. I mean, look at all the vehicles coming around, no headlights on. You know, they're not under, they don't even have a clue that they're now making themselves harder to see, which could increase the chance of just stress or a collision. And all it takes is boom, that's it, boom. 1 second when you start the car, 1 second when you turn off the car. That's it. It's the most absolute simplest thing. And like I said, you'll never know if it really does help, but it will help. I mean, in all your years of driving, I guarantee you somebody will hesitate and not pull out because they see your headlights, or they see turn signals, or they even see daytime lights. So anyways, an extremely easy, simple thing, but the reason you're not required by law, it's daytime, and most drivers don't do it. And it's kind of like, well, okay, nobody else is doing it. Well, yeah, one of the goals of driving is to not drive like everybody else. So anyways, so you got headlights, including turn signals, you got speed. The other thing, and this is the biggest defensive driving thing, is just following distance. The more following distance you have, the easier it is for people to see you. Now the fourth thing, and I'm going to kind of refer back to this a lot, is what the only drivers that usually do this is motorcyclists, and that's adjust lane position. So when you're driving, if you say, hey, somebody could pull out on the right, well, that's a potential problem on the right. So you look to the left and you notice, hey, there's nobody on my left. Let me drive a little more in left lane position. Who knows? That could help the visibility. There's other reasons why you might adjust lane position, and one is just to get away from danger. You can definitely imagine as a motorcyclist you want to be away from danger. And of course, it reduces what I call the panic effect. Because a lot of people are driving fast, they're driving in a blind spot, they're hard to see, somebody pulls out, and they do this, oh my gosh, and they swerve. And then maybe they swerve back and overcorrect, and then they lose control, and it's like, oh my gosh, this guy, it's like, well, why did you swerve? Well, because this guy came from out of nowhere. He didn't come from out of nowhere. Nobody comes from out of nowhere. They came from somewhere, but you just didn't acknowledge it as a risk. You were just zombie driver, texting, tailgating, speeding, and not understanding that, hey, somebody could pull out of these side streets. That's where people could say, well, Wes, that means I'm going to be driving down the road constantly looking left to right, where I can and can't go. You got it. That's exactly how it is. Well, I can't do that because I got to watch the guy in front of me. That's where you have big time control. You adjust your following distance to be even better so that you can scan. That's why the big foundation is following distance. I mean, you can't even scan and adjust lane position and see risk. So this is all defensive driving. So when you drive down the road, I might say be in left lane position or right lane position, or I might say try to be more, or I might say what lane position should you be in? And your answer will reflect what you perceive as a risk. Now, don't get too caught up in scanning and looking for risk and saying, hey, potential problem on the right, can I swerve to the left? Potential problem on the left, can I swerve to the right? Can I just... This is all advanced stuff. You can just focus on the basics for now, and then as you get better, you can start kind of and it's like a secret weapon. Just adjusting lane position. Speed is already good. We're not a speed demon. We already have our headlights on. We already have our following distance, and so the other one is just adjusting lane position. So, how to find lane position? So we know we're about a foot and a half from the yellow. So if you look over at that yellow line there, try to get a feel for where it disappears under the car. It could be just left of the headlight. You could feel like it's going under the left headlight. And that is a good way. That's why it's nice to sit high in the car so you can see that line even better. So right now, try to get that feeling. Now look straight ahead at that building, and then try to just use your peripheral vision to memorize it. Because when you drive down the road, you're not going to want to be looking at that line and at that line. So yeah, you'd be looking straight ahead and you're using your peripheral vision. So that way, if you are even closer to it, then you say, okay, well, I'm definitely less than 1.5 feet away. Now, if you start going to the right and that line or that dash really is moving to the left, well, now you're maybe 2 or 3 feet from it. So you can use it as a reference point, okay, and as you deviate from that point. And to find other lane positions, I use the center of the lane. So if you find the center of the lane and you try to get the center of the lane going down the middle of the car, then you'll know you're in right or left, you're in middle lane position. You're in middle lane position. But if you deviate, so if the center of the lane, you feel like it's going underneath me, then you're in left position. If you feel like it's going underneath you, you're in right lane position. So using the lines there, going under the left headlight area and the center of the lane, you can a lot of times find good lane position. There is a way to find lane position looking at this line on the right, but I don't really think it's quite necessary. Now, if you're driving a bigger vehicle, you might want to learn how to establish a right reference point to figure out how close you are to the right. Okay. Other things you might take into account is you might say, well, this lane looks like it's about 12 feet wide. Not this, obviously, but you might say the lane's 12 feet wide. I think this car is somewhere around 5.5 feet wide. So you might say, okay, 12 foot wide, 5.5 foot wide car, okay, that might help you determine. One guy on the internet said something kind of interesting, a different perspective, and he said, try to find lane position based upon not where your car is in the lane, but where you are in the lane, your own, where you are, and then you just kind of work your way out from that. So if you say, I feel like I'm towards the left, well, then obviously the car is to the left, things like that. So I don't know, that could help.